Inorganic growth or external growth. We are also going to have three types of this. A business can undertake a strategic alliance or a joint venture, perhaps a merger or a takeover. And this is where a business grows extremely dramatically overnight by joining forces with another company through one of those three things. So it's not the slow kind of building up of growth over years like organic growth. Instead, it's an overnight transformation because of a contractual agreement or a merger or a takeover that you have entered into with another company. So we just need to be familiar with each of these different types, and we need to be familiar with the advantages and disadvantages of each. So a strategic alliance, or sometimes called a joint venture, well, that is where two or more businesses agree to work together on a common project that benefits both firms. So they're not merging together forever or um, for the future. They're just coming together for a particular project. Examples of strategic alliances, well, you could have the example of Apple iPhones and MasterCard credit cards coming together to work on a project called Apple Pay, where you can pay using your mobile phone. Ryanair have a strategic alliance with Hertz, where you're able to book your rental car when you go on holidays at the same time as you're booking your flight. They're working together on that project to mutual benefit. McDonald's and Disney often have strategic alliances where you put a Disney toy into a McDonald's Happy Meal. Um, so there are several examples of strategic alliances that we are familiar with. Now, what are the advantages? Well, there's an increased likelihood of success because businesses are sharing knowledge and skills and resources, and the businesses are coming together to create a better product. So it usually works out quite well. And also, this can open up new markets for both firms, and it can help to increase sales and profits for each business. So, looking at a strategic alliance like Google and Hyundai, putting Google Maps into Hyundai cars, that's opening up the automobile industry for Google Maps, but it's also opening up a different class of car buyer for Hyundai because it's a higher spec vehicle if it has inbuilt sat nav and Google Maps. There can be some disadvantages. The fact that two businesses are working together will mean there will be slow decision making because everybody will have to be consulted. You cannot be nimble in your decision making. It takes time to consult everybody. And of course, for the same reason, there can also be many disagreements between businesses. And this might be regarding costs or it might be regarding leadership. Who takes the lead on a project? Who's really in charge? That's a strategic alliance. A merger. Well, a merger is when two or more businesses join together for their mutual benefit. Now, this is a permanent joining together. So this is not just for a particular project, but this is making one business out of two, as the image suggests. So examples of mergers, um, Irish Permanent many years ago, and they merged with a company called Trustee Savings Bank or TSB, and they became Permanent TSB. Air France and KLM, they merged together, two different airlines. KLM is a Dutch airline, Air France is obviously French. They merged to become one airline. And Paddy Power and Betfair merged together to become a new company called Flutter Entertainment about 4 years ago. The advantages of mergers? Well, companies can benefit from economies of scale because that new, larger business, much larger now, twice as big because two companies have joined together, can benefit from economies of scale. They can make things cheaper per unit because they are bigger. They can receive discounts from their suppliers. and bulk buying can take place, perhaps. They can come up with new products, so the merged business might be able to develop new products faster because they have combined resources, and this, of course, will help sales. And of course, if they can come up with new products and help sales, well, of course, that will lead to increased profits. However, there are disadvantages in mergers. It will almost always lead to redundancies because if you're bringing together two different workforces, there will be duplication of jobs. So therefore, there will be two sets of cleaners, for example. There will be two sets of marketing teams. There will be two sets of financial accountants, and therefore some of those may have to be made redundant. There may well be conflict because business culture can different business cultures can cause conflict. So maybe the company's staff, the two different companies may not necessarily get on very well. And decision making again can be slow because again there is two different sides to still consider, even though they have merged into one company. And there still might be a lack of trust between the merged workforce, and there may be industrial relations problems indeed. And then the last one we're going to look at is a takeover. And a takeover is where one business buys at least 51% of another business in either a hostile or a friendly manner. So they're buying out the controlling share in another business. Now, if it's a friendly takeover, well, that means that the company who is being taken over is happy to consent to that happening. They think it's a good idea, and they're happy for it to continue. A good example of that is WhatsApp, who were taken over by Facebook, but they were quite happy to be taken over by Facebook, and it worked out well for both companies. A hostile takeover is one where the company being taken over is unhappy about it. The management are unhappy about it, and they're resistant to the takeover. However, if it's a publicly traded company, there's not really that much they can do about it because the shares are on the stock market, and they're there to be bought. Ryanair attempted a hostile takeover of Aer Lingus at one stage. They bought about 25% of their shares, but they would have bought much more if the government didn't step in to prevent it. And that would have been a very hostile takeover because both companies dislike each other intensely. So a hostile takeover creates much more difficulty. Advantages. Well, takeovers can spread risk by diversifying into new products and into new markets, and therefore it becomes a more diversified company overall. So, uh, an example of a takeover that in 2006 Adidas bought Reebok, and they spent about €3 billion buying that company, and that allowed them to access the American sportswear market, where they previously weren't. They were mainly a European company, Adidas. So therefore, they had now diversified between two markets. And if Europe hits a recession, at least they still have America to fall back on. Again, economies of scale. The larger businesses will benefit from discounts from suppliers due to bulk buying. So when a company becomes bigger, they can avail of those economies of scale. And again, they can come up with new products and faster development of new products because they have two perhaps teams of product developers working together. However, it can be very expensive for the acquiring company. A large amount of capital to be invested. Facebook had to pay 19 billion to buy WhatsApp, so it's a major investment that has to take place. There may well be staff redundancies because there will be too many staff performing the same duties when one business is taken over. Again, that's a duplication of roles, so somebody is going to have to lose out there. And there can be industrial relations problems, particularly if it is a hostile takeover. Well, then staff will be unhappy about working with perceived enemies almost, and they certainly won't like taking instruction from um, people who previously they were competing with.